Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. On that note, let's take a look at the headlines this hour. Following Marco Rubio's meeting with Ukrainian officials in Geneva, it does seem that the United States and Ukraine have drafted a fresh peace proposal. A 28-point plan is now being amended. The deadline set by Donald Trump, of course, is Thursday. Mayor Svetlana Kambylova has stated that Ukrainian airstrikes hit Taganrog, damaging 2 apartment buildings, a private home, a college, 2 industrial sites, and a kindergarten. Meanwhile, Ukrainian rescuers say that Russian strikes have killed 2 and wounded 6 in Kiev. US President Donald Trump has stated that he has held a very good phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping, describing US-China relations as extremely strong. In focus, of course, were talks over Taiwan. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi has dialed President Donald Trump. This is their first phone conversation since Takaichi triggered a diplomatic row with Beijing over comments suggesting that Japan could respond militarily to a Chinese attack on Taiwan. Taiwanese Premier Cho Jung-tai has stated that a return to China is not an option for the island's 23 million people. This comes after Chinese President Xi Jinping pressed his country's sovereignty claims in a phone conversation with Donald Trump. Moscow and Beijing are exploring ways to increase Russian oil shipments to China. Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak has pointed out that currently China imports about 1.4 million barrels per day by sea and 900,000 via pipelines. The Trump administration has officially designated the Venezuelan group Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist organization, even though questions remain about whether this group exists or not. China will launch the Shenzhou 22 spacecraft today at 12:11 p.m. local time, sending it to the Tiangong space station. 3 astronauts are currently aboard the station without a flight-ready return vehicle available in case of emergency. Well, viewers, those were the headlines and our top focus. The United States is pressing Ukraine to accept a peace plan aimed at ending the war with Russia. Kiev, of course, says the proposal concedes too much to Moscow. The original 28-point plan would have seen Ukraine cede control of parts of Donetsk and Luhansk and reduced its military, the size of it specifically. These demands were branded as unacceptable by Kiev. Now, talks in Geneva over the weekend has produced a new, shorter draft, which Ukraine says includes, in its assessment, correct elements, although sensitive issues remain to be discussed with US President Donald Trump. The White House has denied that Trump is favoring Russia and that there is no meeting scheduled between Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky this week. Listen in to what Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, had to say.
So there are no plans at this moment in time. As you know, things can change very quickly around here, so we'll keep you all apprised, but there's no meeting scheduled right now. As for where we are, I spoke with Secretary Rubio at length. I spoke with the president as well. Everybody inside feels optimistic about what happened and transpired yesterday in Geneva.
Meanwhile, Zelensky has stated that Ukraine is at a critical moment and residents in regions like Zaporizhia are rejecting to cede territory. European and US officials continue consultations as both sides are working towards a possible deal that would uphold Ukraine's sovereignty. Listen in to what Zelensky had to say.
Сьогодні наша делегація повернулася з Женеви після переговорів з американською стороною та європейськими партнерами. І тепер перелік необхідних кроків для закінчення війни може стати працездатним. Станом на зараз, після Женеви, пунктів менше, вже не 28, і багато правильного враховано в цій рамці. Ще є зараз над чим попрацювати всім разом. дуже непросто. Щоб зробити фінальний документ, і треба зробити все достойно. І ми цінуємо, що більшість світу готова нам допомагати. І американська сторона налаштована конструктивно. Фактично увесь день вчора були зустрічі. Це була непроста, надзвичайно детальна робота.
With us on the broadcast is Ms. Irina Zuckerman, a senior journalist joining us from New York. Thank you so much for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. It does seem that the Trump administration has now factored in the concerns that Ukraine as well as Ukraine's European allies have had. A draft, fresh draft has been prepared, shorter draft, as Zelensky has highlighted, which would not see Ukraine ceding as much territory as was demanded by the original draft. How do you think the Russians will respond to this?
No, that Putin essentially dismissed the new version of the plan, attacked US and its allies, and I don't think the new version will frankly survive Ukraine's scrutiny there against ceding any land. There are certainly concessions that are unilateral. So far, Russia has not agreed to any mechanism that would not only remove its forces entirely from Ukraine, but permanently constrain them from ever being deployed to nations. Without such conditions, I don't see how a renewal of hostilities can be anything but inevitable, no matter what the concessions Ukraine does now, makes now.
Indeed, ma'am, requesting you to stay on with us. We're tracking some further updates as far as this peace plan is concerned. UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has stated that there has been important progress towards a just end and lasting peace, but she stressed that Russia must now come to the negotiating table. Meanwhile, she's referenced a joint statement from the US and Ukraine, which reaffirmed Kiev's sovereignty and highlighted Europe's broader security concerns. She has stated that continued dialogue is key, but action on the ground must match diplomatic efforts. Take a look.
I think there's been important progress made, and we've seen from the joint statement made by the US and Ukraine last night that commitment to the just and lasting peace, to sovereignty and also security. And of course there's a lot more work still to do, but the key thing is that Russia now needs to come to the table and to stop the bombardment of Ukraine.
In Zaporizhia, meanwhile, Ukrainians are reacting to Washington's latest peace proposal, which would freeze the war while leaving Russian forces in control of territories. Residents are struggling, especially amidst emergency power cuts caused by strikes on energy infrastructure. In fact, let's take a look at what some of the residents had to say.
Та багато чого від Росії, від неї нічого не дождешся. Гарного. Капитуляция. Вот они хотят, чтобы мы капитулировали. Это ужасно. Сколько людей погибло. Нельзя идти на уступки.
Меня это очень волнует. Я же говорю, с одной стороны хочется, чтобы был мир, а с другой стороны, если на не очень выгодных условиях, ну не знаю, я не уверена, что война закончится. Все равно это через пару лет повторится снова. Мы опять попадем в ту же самую ситуацию.
Я за мир, за сохранение жизни людей. А как? Я ж не политик. Ну вот реально, вот я бухгалтер, что я? Это геополитика, это вообще. Мне лишь бы все были живы, все. А кто вернет человеческие жизни, вот вообще? Вот гибнут дальше люди, и мирные, и военные, Каждый день какая-то трагедия. Я поэтому и не смотрю, стараюсь не смотреть новости.
На сегодняшний день я не вижу стремления России, потому что обстрелы, последние обстрелы у меня дома на рынке Шевченковском, 5 погибших человек, так что я пока не вижу стремления России. Что-то это. Харьков сегодня или вчера и продолжается. Я считаю, что это еще надолго.
With us on the broadcast is Mr. Matthew Wadham. He's an author joining us from Washington, D.C. We've heard what some of the Ukrainians have had to just say. They've pointed out the fact that, winter is on the anvil and there are several power outages, but they're resolute with the fact that they do not want to give up their territory. The new plan has been drafted. It's, of course, ceding less territory than what was chalked out in the original draft that was presented. In your assessment, we of course heard from Ms. Sukerman earlier, but I also wanted to get your opinion into this. Do you think the Russians would be amenable to this? Because the plan also outlines how their frozen assets will be used and the fact that sanctions could be eased out as well. What sort of cost-benefit analysis do you think the Russians would be doing?
Well, I'm not sure how the Russian mind works. They're awfully good at losing wars historically, so they're not very good at strategy. They seem to be winning this one at the moment, but they're in a perilous situation. And, Russia, President Trump inexplicably seems to be giving more to Russia in the current peace proposal than he is giving to the Ukraine. I'm glad that the territorial concessions that the United States has been asking for have been reduced, but I think that most people in the Ukrainian government don't want to have to give up any of their land to Russia. They want to have it restored to pre-Russian military conquest boundaries. Now, I think that Russia is trying to exert as much pressure on President Trump as it can, and President Trump is inexplicably seems to be siding with Russia at the moment, which I don't fully understand. It could be that in his desire to be seen as a peacemaker, he's supporting the horse that is perceived to be stronger and is leaning on Ukraine to come to the deal and is trying to bully them, use the presidential bully pulpit, as we call it in America, to get Ukraine to agree to these concessions. But we keep hearing, I was on your show a little over 24 hours ago, and apart from the reduction in the land concessions, I don't think very much has changed. We keep hearing these breathless, anonymously sourced reports coming out of the U.S. media, that breakthroughs are on the way, but I don't really see it. And we can't know for sure because none of these reports are based on the record interviews. So we don't know if we're just being given spin by the United States or by Russia or by Ukraine. We don't really know what's going on. So I'm not very optimistic about what's happening at the moment, but I've been wrong before and I could be wrong this time.
Indeed, sir, requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking further updates.
Sure.
In Russia's Rostov region, the mayor of Taganrog has stated that one person has been killed and 3 others injured after what she called a massive strike on the port city. Several apartment blocks, a college building, industrial sites, and even a kindergarten have been damaged. Further east, in the Krasnodar region, authorities have in fact reported one of the most sustained and massive attacks carried out by Ukraine so far. Officials say that at least 6 people were wounded and around 20 homes across 5 municipalities were damaged. Kiev has not commented on these strikes. Cross-border attacks have in fact intensified sharply in recent months as the war continues to spill deeper into Russian territory. In further developments, powerful explosions have been heard across Ukraine's capital Kiev after a wave of Russian strikes triggered a city-wide air alert overnight. According to emergency officials, the overnight bombardment has killed 2 people and wounded 6 others. Local authorities say that Russian drones sparked fires in several apartment buildings in Kiev, causing significant damage. Ukraine's energy ministry has stated that Russia has launched a massive attack on critical energy infrastructure, part of what officials describe as an escalating campaign to cripple power supplies ahead of winter. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Matthew Wadham. Of course, I've just walked our viewers through the latest updates that we're tracking on the ground. But I'd like to come back to the peace proposal. The fact that in the amended draft that has been put forth, we are seeing that the cap, the limit that was imposed upon the size of the Ukrainian forces is something that, would not be figuring out, would not be a factor in the fresh report. And US is also likely to provide security guarantees to Ukraine. Of course, the degree of that has not been revealed, but Europe is expecting some NATO-style security guarantees. What does this mean for Ukraine and for the future of Eastern Europe at large in case an escalation is triggered maybe a decade down the line as well, if peace does materialize?
I suspect that the United States is meeting resistance from Ukraine because Ukraine decades ago thought that the United States would be its defender if Russia attacked it. For example, when Bill Clinton was president, or I guess maybe it was before that, after the Soviet Union broke apart and Ukraine decided to give up its nuclear arsenal, and I thought that the understanding was that the United States would protect it in the event that Russia attacked. And so far, the United States has been defending Ukraine, has been sending arms, but it has been doing it begrudgingly. And I suspect that Ukrainians are suspicious about what Uncle Sam's motives are, and if the United States is in it for the long haul. Right now, in his own party, the Republican Party, there is a strong isolationist bloc that doesn't want the United States to that thinks Ukraine is is not the business of the United States, and that the United States should not be involved in defending it at all. On the other side, other realists in the Republican Party and some in the Democratic Party say, a few in the Democratic Party, not many, but some, say that Russia is an ally of China, and communist China is bad. So we really have to defend. It's important to defend Ukraine. So I can understand why Ukraine is suspicious at this point, and so far in the U.S. seems to be showing a bias in favor of Russia. But I don't know if that's going to what the final agreement is going to look like if an agreement is reached. So there may not be a Russian bias in the end, but right now, Trump certainly seems to be trying to help the Russians a little bit more than he's trying to help Ukrainians.
All right, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking our time sharing your analysis with our viewers on NewsX World. In other news we're tracking, we're now learning that President Trump is preparing to speak directly with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, even though the U.S. has now labeled him as the head of a terrorist organization. This comes as the U.S. has designated a Venezuelan cartel as a foreign terrorist organization, and the top U.S. military officer is set to visit Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, officials are meanwhile stating that this signals that an operation is imminent. This is, of course, analysis coming in from the Democrats. We have, in fact, learned that the Cartel de los Soles has been designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the United States of America. Maduro has, in fact, responded to this as well. He slammed this as a ridiculous lie. This terror tag, he has stated, paves the way for an illegitimate military intervention. He's claimed that this is a bid to kick him out of power. He's gone so far as, in fact, denying the existence of this particular cartel. With us on the broadcast is Ms. Irina Zuckerman. Interesting developments as far as the Caribbean is concerned. A lot of Democrats are pointing out that Trump has labeled this cartel as a terrorist organization in order to sort of circumvent congressional approval to carry out strikes in Venezuela. To what extent do you concur with this analysis?
There's some truth to that. I mean, this term originally referred to high-ranking Venezuelan military officers involved allegedly in large-scale drug trafficking, extortion, and cooperation with Colombian and Mexican cartel. When it's applying a terrorist label, the signal here is twofold. First, it considers the Venezuelan security apparatus itself to be a transnational criminal terrorist activity, and second, it intends to escalate legal, financial, and intelligence pressure not just on individuals, but on the institutional machinery which keeps Maduro in power. And this would allow U.S. to pursue much more aggressive financial targeting, intelligence operations, interdiction efforts, and also even international cooperation against any actor linked to this Venezuelan military trafficking network, and creates diplomatic leverage by framing the Venezuelan regime not merely as corrupt, but as an active threat to hemispheric security. Now, the argument there by the Democrats is that Cartel de los Soles is a loosely defined concept without a coherent organizational structure, that it's not an actual organization. However, the counter-argument to that is that the reality of the Venezuelan military elite systematically using state power to run criminal enterprises, laundering money through foreign banks, and collaborating with Hezbollah-linked networks, destabilizing the region, undeniable, no matter how you consider it. So, and it's not new for the U.S. to, for instance, to designate state sponsors of terrorism. Those applications have been applied to other states like Iran in the past. So this seems to be a similar step, and just because there isn't a formal registration for this network doesn't mean that it does not exist and does not fit a conspiracy charge framework in its entirety, and could be not engaging in terror induced activities. But more importantly than simply circumventing Congress, this is part of a broader U.S. effort, as the administration interprets it, to collapse the financial ecosystem sustaining Maduro. It's also a deterrence move against countries and companies that are considering deals with Venezuela's military, signaling that such interactions could now trigger terrorism-related penalties.
All right, ma'am, with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, putting that into context for our viewers. Of course, I was highlighting the reaction that has come in from Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. He's called this move a ridiculous lie meant to justify what he claims as illegal military intervention. Washington claims the cartel is run by President Maduro and has issued a $50 million reward for his capture, although Venezuela now has denied that it exists. The U.S. has deployed its largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, and its troops near Venezuelan waters, targeting alleged drug trafficking. At least 83 people have been killed in strikes on boats since September. The top U.S. military officer will, of course, as I mentioned, visit Trinidad and Tobago. This is a part of pressure operations. Airlines are cancelling flights, and the FAA has warned of heightened risks as well, signaling rising tensions in the region. Listen in to what the Vice President of Venezuela has stated.
Hoy Marco Rubio, ustedes saben, sacó otro refrito, que si el cartel de los soles, que ahora es organización terrorista, ridículos, son unos ridículos. Se repiten y se repiten y se repiten y por eso van de fracaso en fracaso.
In other news, we're tracking from the United States of America that is related to all of these developments. The Pentagon has now stated that it is investigating United States Senator Mark Kelly, a retired naval aviator and astronaut, for his participation in a video that urged military service members to refuse illegal orders. The announcement came after President Donald Trump repeatedly called for criminal charges against Kelly and other Democratic lawmakers involved in the video. Meanwhile, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth has stated that Kelly is facing a probe because he is the only lawmaker in the video who falls under the jurisdiction of military law as a retired Navy captain. Kelly, who was a fighter pilot before becoming an astronaut and then retiring at the rank of a captain, told troops that they can refuse illegal orders, while other lawmakers in the video stated that they needed troops to stand up for the Constitution. With us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakarji. All right, there seems to be trouble getting the network sorted. We'll just get that done. But in the meantime, of course, I'd like to provide all you viewers a context to why this is taking place. This is, of course, linked to what's happening in the Caribbean. We've seen so far that the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has warned of heightened risks. There's been a no-flight zone that has been created. There's been a military buildup that's taking place there. The United States has deployed its largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford. And the Democrats are meanwhile pointing out that with the designation of the Cartel of the Suns as a terrorist group, the US President, who is also the Commander-in-Chief of the US Armed Forces, is trying to circumvent congressional approval and carry out strikes in Venezuela. In the meantime, there were these 6 Democrat lawmakers who had come out and put out a video, including Senator Mark Kelly, who had highlighted that troops can refuse illegal orders and they need to stand up for the Constitution. As of now, Pete Hegseth clearly states that these are seditious statements meant to incite the troops against the Commander-in-Chief's state orders as well. The larger debate that the Democrats have now ignited is whether whatever orders will be given are lawful or not. Pete Hegseth has stated that the video that was made by the 6 lawmakers was despicable, reckless and false, encouraging the warriors to ignore the orders of their commanders. He has stated this undermines every aspect of good order and discipline. He has also gone on to say that what their statement has gone on to do is sowing doubt and confusion. He's emphasized that 5 of the 6 individuals in that video do not fall, under the Department of War jurisdiction, as 1 is former CIA, 4 are former military but not retired. So they are no longer subject to the code or Uniform Code of Military Justice of the United States of America. However, Senator Mark Kelly, who's a retired Navy captain, is still subjected to this particular code. Meanwhile, the Department of War has put out a statement stating that allegations of misconduct have been received against Captain Mark Kelly in accordance with the Uniform Code of Justice and other applicable regulations. Review has been initiated to determine further actions, which may include recall to active duty for court-martial proceedings or administrative measures as well. With us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakarji. He's a geostrategic defense expert joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. I was, of course, providing a background to our viewers with regards to why the Pentagon has initiated a probe into Senator Mark Kelly. On one hand, we've seen Pete Hegseth calling the remarks seditious. These come in the backdrop of the fact that Democrats are pointing out that Trump is trying to circumvent congressional approval and strike Venezuela. They've pointed out to the military buildup, the no-fly zone that was declared, the fact that the Cartel of the Suns has been declared a terrorist organization, the head of which U.S. claims is Nicolas Maduro. In light of this, 6 Democrat lawmakers had put out a video of which Senator Mark Kelly was also one of the leaders who had urged the troops to not follow unlawful orders and stand up for the Constitution. I wanted to understand from you what aspect of this video could be interpreted as the Trump administration has done as seditious. Is there a clause in the Uniform Code of Military Justice that provides for what these Democrat lawmakers have pointed towards? Many people are talking about the Article 92 of the UCMJ.
Yeah, Pia, good morning. Thank you for getting me for your show. In fact, in your question lies the answer that Article 92 is the core issue. But before that, let me give you a little background. This is not for the first time it is happening. See, Donald Trump, we all are aware of his flip-flop directions internally, domestically, as also in the international fora. Many places he has pulled back, withdrawn the status of US, despite US being a member of, call it climate change, like day before yesterday, 2-3 days back, he boycotted G20. He's out of that APEC meeting and such like, establishments and organizations. The JPOC, which was there with the Iran, he's pulled back USA. So there is a factor of arbitrariness. There is a factor of inconsistency. There is a factor of going against the Constitution. It has been noticed by a layman, by a neutral peer person. Kelly himself has been an astronaut. He himself has participated in the combat role. He's a fighter pilot. He's got huge experience in his past life and career. So having observed these kind of discrepancies, there is you see, in military, what happens is once an order is given, unfortunately or fortunately, USA has got a system of president being at the helm of affairs. He's the last man and the first man who is giving orders. Yes. So if these orders are very frequently changed, then the man on the ground, he becomes absolutely indecisive. He is log-jammed. He doesn't know what to do. So under these circumstances, there are issues which are being subjected to flip-flop decisions and directions of Donald Trump. A specific case, unfortunately, I don't have. I would have actually shared with you in the short time available I could dig up. Maybe I'll dig it up next time when there is a show. I'll give you a specific example. There are 3 of them which are coming to my notice. One is the attack on the Caribbean Sea. Caribbean Sea is, on one hand, you call them terrorists. The other hand, you tell them as drug peddlers. Third opportunity you get, you say that Maduro is not a fine person. He needs to be prosecuted or executed. He needs to be thrown out. And ultimately, behind all this, what are you looking at? You are looking at the oil in Venezuela. Okay, so all these are facades which are being built up. You have knocked off how many? I think 12 or 16 the seaboats have been destroyed. There are more than 50, 60 people who have been killed. Has anybody in the world asked for evidence from America that if you are calling them as drug peddlers or drug cartels, do you have any evidence? Has the United Nations ever asked for this? So under these circumstances, when troops have to go invade and carry out attack on something or neutralize some element, the CIA is playing a very important role inside Venezuela. Venezuela is not a big country. It's around 1,200 by 1,300 kilometers, north, south, east, west. And it has got a coastal line of almost 2,800 kilometers. It has got a mountainous features. The defenses are not very strong, but oil is very rich. Under these circumstances, without clear-cut mandate and objective, if you start asking, build up the troops without any clear-cut orders, what do the troops do? When you ask them to knock off so-and-so, troops also must know the end state. What is the end state objective? Is it Maduro? Is it the oil that you are looking at? Or it is mere the drug cartel? So under these circumstances, it falls under the domain of hybrid warfare. In hybrid warfare, unless there is, the commander can never give a clear-cut, well-defined objective. It has to be understood. What is actually lacking today in America, if I put my feet in the shoes of the American forces, is that the orders are frequently being changed. The objective or the target that one is supposed to target is also being changed. And the chain of command is also changing. They are observing. A man sitting as president, he directly is talking to a person A, B, C. That is the circumstance under which Kelly has made. He has urged the people that regardless of the consequences, you have taken a pledge, an oath to the Constitution of America, do not ever do a wrong thing. Even if president is asking you to do, because Constitution has laid out certain directives. The soldiers are supposed to comply with those directives, and anything which is being told by the president, which are against or outside the ambit of the Constitution, are not supposed to be complied. They are doing it under duress because there may be some action taken by Hexet is the defense secretary, the minister equivalent, or the president himself. So under these circumstances, Kelly has made a statement and he has urged the people to kindly guard against this. This is one example I've given you. Second example that comes to my mind is something which has not caught the attention of the media, the attack against Iran. The attack against Iran, much against the preparation, initially, if I recall correctly, it should have been launched from Diego Garcia. The distance is around 2,800, 3,200 kilometers. Yes. They had flown from the mainland of USA without any stoppages after refueling facility, given mindful of the fact that initially they had decided not to attack Iran. They were brought into this particular phase of war because of Netanyahu. The third thing that comes to my mind is actually something which is happening there in Israel and Hamas, which will come to light in due course of time, which Netanyahu, unfortunately or fortunately, is trying to rope in America and make them do certain things which the Constitution of America doesn't allow. So give me some time, maybe I'll be able to research on it and come back to you subsequently if the need arises. Thank you.
Indeed, sir. One final opinion I wanted from you. We do know that Trump has enjoyed considerable support from, veterans. He's been posturing as a peacemaker. He, in fact, initiated the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. One of his campaign positions was also the fact that American troops would not lose their lives on foreign soil. This is a consistent position that he's had since day one. So, considering the fact that, he's always taken a very hardline stance backing the American troops, that's the sort of image he has. Now, going after someone who's had such an extensive history of serving the United States, not just as an aviator, not just as a fighter pilot in combat missions, whether it's in Iraq, but even as an astronaut, is this likely to backfire on the Trump administration? Speaking of the optics.
Absolutely. Pia, you have put the finger. In fact, I must compliment you for your foresight and the ability to visualize how things are going to unfold. The American Constitution being what it is, and because now there is a gradual shift of dominance or leverage from Republicans to Democrats now. I think 4 provinces have already won. The Democrats have come to power. That itself is giving a big jhatka or big jitter to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, in due course of time, is going to mellow down. Kelly is a very accomplished, he's an accomplished kind of a combat soldier. He's got vast experience. He's got the solidarity and support of the veterans. That swell is there. So he will be able to swing things much against the liking of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has to mellow down. So, that's why I was in USA for a long time. People, they have given an acronym, TACO. TACO is Trump always, chickens out. He will start showing teeth and eyes, start asserting himself, mindful of the fact that he is giving a wrong order or setting a wrong precedence. And soon, once he starts, the finger catches fire. Suddenly he will realize the tail is on fire, he will, start backing out, start taking a U-turn. He is known for that. Kelly is he's a man of experience, wisdom, he's got lots of popularity, he's led the troops from the front, he's a combat aviator, and he's participated in many operations. I don't think as a soldier I would vouch for the credibility and the reliability of this person, Mr. Kelly, and I feel that Donald Trump needs to actually go deeper into the issue rather than, getting after Kelly and trying to sideline him. It is very important in a situation that America is today to identify the correct issue and take a bipartisan and a decision in the larger interest of USA. Only then USA can make America great again.
All right, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking our time, of course, putting that into context and explaining to our viewers, especially the part with what exactly constitutes as a lawful and unlawful order. Your perspective as a military man, of course, is very insightful on that note. Shifting focus to news coming in from South Asia, we're now learning that airstrikes by Pakistan on Afghanistan's border regions have killed at least 10 people, including 9 children. This is according to a Taliban government spokesperson. The attacks targeted homes in the Khost province, with additional strikes wounding 4 civilians in Kunar and Paktika. The bombardment comes a day after a suicide attack has taken place in Pakistan's Peshawar city, which killed 3 paramilitary officers. Islamabad blamed terrorists operating from Afghan soil, including the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, for the attacks, and tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan have escalated. We've seen this sort of escalation ever since the Taliban returned to power in 2021. Things, in fact, spiked about a month ago. There's been relative calm and peace ever since meetings took place in Doha and Istanbul. But once again, Islamabad is accusing Kabul of sheltering militants, while Kabul has stated that Pakistan hosts groups hostile to Afghanistan and violates its sovereignty. Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, this is all we have for this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.